Welcome to Self-Centered Living, a podcast that serves as a vital platform for women of color across cultures and continents to take charge of our narratives and where our voices are amplified. I'm your host, Trish, and here we delve into our diverse experiences and rich humanity through a blend of personal stories and insightful discussions with a range of guests. Our aim is to foster meaningful connections and understanding among our listeners. Today marks the conclusion of our introductory series. Thank you for taking this ride with me. Whether you've been listening since the beginning or just tuning in now, I honor and am grateful for your presence. I hope that this journey has offered you something real, a moment of pause, a shift in perspective, or perhaps a deeper recognition of your own voice and story. At this early stage, the goal isn't mastery. Yes, this is a former perfectionist saying the goal is not mastery. What it is about comfort, confidence, a growing curiosity to share more honestly and to witness others with greater depth. Before we dive into our recap, I want to share a couple of things that I believe will be helpful. Whether you've listened to an episode or several of the episodes or you're joining for the first time, I believe it's important to reiterate what self-centered living is. Self-centered living is living with an understanding that you are a unique focal point through which life is expressed. It is an inside-out approach to life, informed by your own rich relationship with yourself. The work that I do under self-centered living has 7 foundational principles. I believe that community is an extension of ourselves and fulfills the fundamental need to belong. When cultivated wisely, it reflects our expansive self and becomes a platform for co-creation, fostering a sense of connection and support. I also believe that everything we need is already here, and it becomes increasingly available through growing awareness and returning to the truth, your truth, as only you can define and experience it, free from what others or society may impose on you. I believe we do not harm. Living our greatness and our true expansive self does not require the subjugation of others. I also believe and know that we are expansive and dynamic, that life happens through us and not to us, and we are supported. With regards to the center in self-centered living, we center ourselves, be it take that pause, take that deep breath, do that full body scan, step away from the situation. We center ourselves for our wellness and to have authentic relationships with those we love and the world, with the capacity to meet people where they are while recognizing their wholeness. So that's self-centered living and the principles that I try and follow every day. Another point worth clarifying is this term woman of color. Woman of color, it's a term that's not globally used. So it's worth specifying what I mean by woman of color. I want to do it in a way that's inclusive and not limiting, but even in what I'll share, it doesn't capture the wide net that I'm throwing. When I speak about women of color, I'm talking about women like me, like many of you listening. We are the daughters of migrations and movements. We carry stories that span continents and centuries. We are Black women, the daughters of those who birthed jazz from the crossroads of African rhythms and American experience, who developed mathematical innovations like Katherine Johnson's calculations that guided NASA's first space flights, and who revolutionized agriculture through the innovations like George Washington Carver's sustainable farming methods, and the countless unnamed women who preserved seed varieties and grown techniques that sustained communities. We are Indigenous women, the daughters of those who birthed traditional ecological knowledge systems that sustained ecosystems for millennia, who developed sophisticated agricultural techniques like the Three Sisters planting method, corn, beans, and squash grown together, and who created fire management practices and maintained healthy forests and grasslands long before Western science understood these principles. We are Latina women, the daughters of those who birth healing traditions that blend indigenous plant knowledge with the curanderismo practices, who developed architectural innovations from adobe construction techniques that naturally regulate temperature to sophisticated water management systems, and who created culinary traditions that transform simple ingredients into dishes that build community and preserve cultural identity. We are Asian women, the daughters of those who birth innovations that transform human civilization, paper making that revolutionized communication, silk production that connected continents through trade, agricultural techniques like rice cultivation that fed billions, and philosophical frameworks that shaped how humanity understands existence and ethics. We are Middle Eastern and Northern African women, the daughters of those who birthed the world's first universities like Al Qarawiyyin in Morocco and preserve ancient knowledge through libraries like the House of Wisdom in Baghdad, who developed mathematical concepts, including algebra and algorithms, and who created architectural marvels that demonstrate mastery of engineering, astronomy, and design. We are Pacific Islander women, the daughters of those who birthed navigation systems that use stars, ocean swells, and wind patterns to traverse thousands of miles of open ocean, who developed sustainable fishing practices that maintained marine ecosystems, and who created sophisticated oral traditions that preserved complex knowledge across generations without written text. We are women of multiple races who embody the beautiful complexity of belonging to multiple worlds. We are actually the global majority, the majority of women on this planet. Yet we've been conditioned to see ourselves as exceptions, as other, as deviations from some contrived norm. What connects many of us? Well, we've learned to navigate multiple cultural codes. We brought our full selves into spaces that weren't designed with us in mind. We've watched our innovations get overlooked while our community's contributions get erased from textbooks. We've been asked to make ourselves smaller to make others comfortable. But we've also experienced the power of ancestral wisdom moving through us. We know what it feels like to draw from lineages rich with knowledge and artistry and innovation. We understand that our individual success honors the brilliance of those who came before us and creates pathways for those who will come after. We are the women who've been creating, leading, and innovating all along. We are the women whose cultures, wisdom, and contributions have been here, have always been here. This is who I'm centering. This is who I'm speaking to. And this is us. This centering is my choice, not as justification, not even as resistance, but as an act of balance and out of the sheer love and deep regard for us. I'm choosing to enliven these vital parts of myself and this world that have been deprived of full expression. Over this series, I have introduced you to 11 women, including myself, across cultures and countries, each revealing what self centered living means when we honor both our individual selves and the expansive self we experience through the communities we belong to. This concept, again, is not about ego driven individualism. It's about expressing our authentic nature with care, concern, and a recognition of our deep interconnection. Through my collaborators' diverse journeys, we've explored themes that illuminate the essence of self centered living. They include the reclamation of personal agency and narrative ownership, the courage required for authentic self expression, and transformation through adversity. We examined identity evolution and reinvention, the integration of dualities, sustainable approaches to service and leadership, and the navigation of identity and belonging in spaces not historically designed for us. We've also touched on the tension between external validation and internal authenticity, the importance of deep connection with nature and reciprocal relationships, and the cultivation of inner guidance and self possession. From these stories emerge a revolutionary understanding. Guess what? Centering yourself is not an act of selfishness. Instead, it's about accessing the potency of authentic expression from our more expansive whole selves. It's about recognizing that we are the authors of our own stories, not victims of circumstances, but active creators of our lives. One of the most profound discoveries connecting these stories is how self centered living disrupts the false dichotomy between caring for oneself and caring for others. We've been conditioned to believe that self care is selfish, that choosing ourselves means abandoning our communities, and that we must sacrifice our well being for others to matter. However, these stories reveal a different truth entirely. When Dara chose sustainability over martyrdom and activism, she didn't become less committed to food sovereignty and land justice. She became more creative, finding ways to incorporate flow in her life while maintaining her health. By interrupting her own burnout, she could show up more fully and consider how to resource the National Black Food and Justice Alliance better to prevent the burnout of others. I'm reminded of the saying she shared with me: many hands lighten the load. Similarly, when Fatima chose to see challenges as growth opportunities, she didn't become self absorbed. Instead, she created the very opportunities for others that she wished had existed for her. And when Natasha mustered the courage to pursue her creative interests, despite potential disappointment from others, she found that following play and joy could lead to precisely what was needed. Her creativity became a source of work where she continues to give and cultivate community, both of which are vital to the nonprofit work she ultimately left. This radical truth that self centered living uncovers is that when you stop abandoning yourself, you stop requiring others to complete you. When you show up from a place of fullness rather than depletion, you have so much more to offer. By modeling wholeness, you permit others to show up whole as well. Each woman is the author of her own story, refusing to let others dictate her narrative. They recognized that the choice between self care and caring for others was a scarcity lens, and permitted themselves to be complex. In doing so, they granted others the same permission. That's the transformation that occurs when someone stops shrinking themselves to fit into boxes, to follow a prescriptive or well-worn path that doesn't feel intuitive or instinctive. So what does this mean for your life? What does it look like in daily practice? It's about waking up to your choices. Rather than automatically saying yes to everything, you begin to pause and ask, does this align with who I'm becoming? Does this align with my values, my beliefs? Does this bring me contentment? Does this light me up? Am I committed to this despite the ups and downs? Instead of heeding your inner critic, you start to trust that quiet voice within that knows what's right for you. Instead of abandoning yourself to maintain peace, to not rock the boat, you step forward as your whole self. Radical self awareness becomes your guiding principle. You cease to apologize for taking up space and instead celebrate your complexity. When things become uncomfortable, you no longer abandon yourself. Instead, you ask, how is this situation working for me? What is it teaching me? What is it fortifying in me? You come to understand that your healing opens possibilities for everyone around you. You prioritize your well being. As Mawa Lisa shared with me in one episode, she tells her clients, keep your cup full. It's never sexy pouring from spittle dregs. You stop burning yourself out in a futile attempt to save everyone and start showing up from a place of fullness. You stop pretending to be someone you're not and instead attract people who see you. No longer do you wait for permission to live your life. You begin creating the change you want to see, choice by choice, intention by intention, growing awareness by growing awareness. Imagine this. What if self-centered living wasn't just about you? What if every time you chose to honor your authentic self, you were paving the way for someone else to do the same? Each of these women didn't just transform their own life, she became living proof that another way is possible. Their courage to create space for their authentic selves encourages others to find and embrace their paths. That brings us to something crucial that I noticed threading through every single conversation: the power of being witnessed. None of this work happens in a vacuum. One of the most generous and life affirming radical gifts you can offer and receive is the act of seeing. To be met entirely, honestly, without someone projecting their version of you onto your story is rare. Witnesses don't impose, they reflect, hold confidence, and listen from presence rather than prescription. They create room for your becoming while holding the vision of the fullness and potency of who you already are. So, what does true listening look like? Think back to the last time someone really saw you, not for what you were doing or for what you offered them, but for who you are. Consider how your voice changes when you discuss something that matters deeply to you, how you light up when you feel understood, heard, seen, and how you settle into yourself when you're free from the pressure to perform. Witnessing is not about fixing, advising, or even agreeing. It's about creating a sacred space for someone to land. For women of color, witnessing becomes even more essential because so often we navigate lives filled with misunderstanding, our stories filtered through assumptions of others, leading to our experiences being questioned or minimized, which leads me to another important consideration: sharing our stories and how we express our stories, our unique way of communicating, our embodied way of communicating, and how it impacts the listeners. There's something special about the way my grandmother spoke in Antiguan dialect. Her voice wasn't just a tool for communication, it was an experience that wrapped me in warmth and familiarity. When she shared her stories, they flowed like a gentle river or forceful rapid, depending on her mood, carrying the weight of our history, culture, and most felt her love. The rhythm of her speech echoed the heartbeat of our roots, conveying emotions that no written word could ever capture. Each syllable and inflection painted a vivid picture, making her tales feel alive and breathing. In Antigua, our dialect is more than just conversation. It's a living representation of our ancestors' struggles and triumphs. When my grandmother spoke, I could feel the music in her words, the rise and fall of her voice, the lilt that seemed to dance around us. It wasn't only what she said that mattered, it was how she said it. The dialect pulsed with the spirit of our ancestry, embodying the joys and traditions of our community that standard English could never fully express. When my grandmother told her stories, she didn't rush. She created a space where time seemed to slow down, allowing me not only to hear her words, but feel them deeply. The way she paused for breath and let her phrases linger in the ear invited me to immerse myself completely in the story. Each pause was a moment to savor the richness of her narrative, letting the warmth of our shared history wash over me. As I listened, I felt her voice forging a connection between us, a bond that went beyond words. I wasn't just a passive listener, I was drawn into her world. Her storytelling was infused with emotion, and the pacing allowed me to experience the joy, sorrow, and lessons embedded in our stories. It was as if her breath carried the essence of our culture, reaching back through generations. This is the power of oral tradition. Elders like my grandmother create spaces for connection and response, allowing their voices to resonate within us. Each story shared becomes an invitation to engage with our collective past. In a world that often tries to erase our narratives, this living tradition is more essential than ever. By sharing our stories, we reclaim our voices and reconnect with the richness of our cultural identity, reminding us that we belong to a vibrant legacy alive with the wisdom of those who came before us. So, why do our stories matter now? Well, for one, they've always mattered. With that said, we are in a time when outdated institutions, practices, and ideologies are collapsing around us. In this time, we find a unique opportunity to create and set a new vision for the future. This moment calls for us to reevaluate existing narratives and challenge the boundaries imposed by these failing systems. As these old structures fall away, we are no longer tethered to practices that do not serve us. Instead, we can harness the power of storytelling as a means to forge new realities and possibilities. By sharing our experiences, we not only resist the limitations of the past, but we also inspire innovative ways of thinking and being. Every story we tell is a seed planted in the fertile ground of potential. These narratives can cultivate hope, resilience, and collaboration, urging us collectively to envision a world where inclusivity and our humanity take center stage. With each woman's voice, we are not just negating outdated norms, we are laying the groundwork for an entirely new reality, one that embraces the beauty of diversity and the strength of community. As we navigate this transformative landscape, let us embrace the power of our stories to build a future that reflects our highest aspirations and values, ultimately fostering a sense of belonging and purpose that transcends time. When Brittany reinvents herself beyond athletics, beyond D1 student athlete, beyond professional basketball player, she is not just surviving the collapse of an old structure, she is cultivating new possibilities from the fertile soil of disruption. Each woman's narrative illustrates that the beauty and potency within her have never been contingent on external validation or systems. It has always existed, waiting for her to acknowledge and express. For women of color, for queer voices, and for those who are overlooked, storytelling acts as reclamation, yet it transcends the personal to become the planetary. We currently inhabit a world in masculine overdrive. When we reclaim our voices and cease outsourcing our wholeness to non reciprocal systems or relationships, we begin to restore balance. We stop romanticizing martyrdom and relieve others of the burden of completing us. By embodying wholeness, we model it so that others can show up fully in their own lives. So, how did this series impact me? As the host, this journey has been both affirming and revealing. It reminded me that a story is relational. It exists not just in what is said, but in what is witnessed. That we need more cultural fluency, not just in language, but heart fluency, to understand each other across histories and geographies. This series revealed just how much dominant structures have shaped our internal landscapes. To live from our center, we must be willing to self-audit. Where has patriarchy taken root in our daily thinking? Where does racism, ableism, or heteronormativity show up in our tone, our gaze, and our silence? These are not abstract concepts. They show up in who we center, who we interrupt, what stories we find palatable, and which ones we overlook. Still, at the core of self-centered living is this: our stories matter. How we carry them, share them, and understand them matters. So, once again, I extend the invitation to you to explore and reflect. What is your level of presence when telling your story? Are you referencing the past more than the present? Will the story you keep returning to get you beyond just survival? Where do you light up when you're speaking? What awakens in you when listening? There's a noticeable shift when someone begins to tell their story from a place of power. Not performative, not armored, but grounded. The voice deepens, the breath slows, the room stills. You feel their presence expand, taking up space without apology, filling out to their edges. That's not a rehearsed version of power. It's embodied truth. It's the difference between narrating from a wound and offering wisdom forged from that wound. I think back again to Brittany's story. There's this moment that gave me chills. I won't say too much because it really is worth you going to the episode and listening. There's this point of embodiment where Brittany, I can tell she realized that how she may have been treated as a student athlete, that wasn't right. Now she was in a position as an assistant coach. And she said to the coach, we're going to stop telling this narrative about recruiting these students and telling them, come join the family. This is about business. So we're going to stand on business and we're going to be truthful and tell them that. Because the truth is, if that was your child, if that was your daughter, you wouldn't treat them that way. It was such a powerful moment. She was helping to create a different story for the next student athlete, not from her wound, but from the wisdom forged from that wound. This is not to say we rush to resolve or spiritualize pain. Some stories still sting. Some are still unfolding. But we can choose our point of view. Are we narrating from victimization or integration with those not so comfortable experiences? Are we allowing ourselves grace as we shift from being driven by our past to gently taking the wheel? So, what's next? Again, if you've listened to several episodes, you know we always conclude with insights and what's next. I plan to spend the rest of this year quietly, distanced from the daily noise. My focus will be on continuing this work, developing offerings that help us cultivate and deepen our voices and the telling of our stories. For every story removed, my intent is to put another one back. I will explore the ways to expand cultural context and break down the biases we've learned and adopted, which can hinder our ability to connect across cultures. I'm working on resources to help women understand their unique vocal patterns, rhythms, and storytelling styles, as well as the inherent power of their voices. I will also be creating spaces for narrative practice where women can explore and share their stories with the benefit of a witness. I do plan to return in 2026 with another series of the Self-Centered Living podcast, continuing to nurture an environment where we can share our stories and embrace owning our narratives. I know a lot of this might feel repetitive, but it is deliberate. I want to replace the voice in your head that says your story doesn't matter, that tells you you're not ready to tell your story. As we close this introductory chapter, I encourage you to continue your journey of self-discovery and self-design through owning and sharing your narratives. Practice being with your story without judgment. Speak aloud what you know, even when your voice trembles. Seek spaces and people who can truly witness you, see you. Take note of when you feel most alive. Above all, remember, the story you live is more potent than any script you've been handed. You don't have to be loud to be impactful. You don't have to be healed to be whole. You don't have to be certain to begin. You are the author of your life, and the pen is already in your hand. Thank you for being here. More to come. Until the next time, stay self-centered and stay rooted in community. Thank you for joining me for this episode of Self-Centered Living. If you have enjoyed it and it has been beneficial in any way, I would love to hear from you. Please email me at info@self-centeredliving.com. Our music is Tide Turns by Ketsu.